Prep complete. I have my 14 gauge piece of mild steel all prepped, mill slag off. Weapon of choice, these DuraPeak clean and strip discs. They work okay, but still it's an hour and a half to 2 hours of my life that I won't get back, especially cleaning a panel this size, both sides. But needless to say, a necessary process nonetheless. It's about 70 inches wide, which gives me a 1/2 inch play, so a 1/4 inch on each cowl shoulder to work with. I figured that was enough tolerance. And similarly, top to bottom, it's 18 inches, which is plenty, and takes you below the torque boxes, so room to dance around that bottom edge. Okay, mock-up time. Who needs a cardboard template? I got a better idea. These pieces came out so nice and clean and remain integral that I cleaned them off, put them back in place, clamped them, so I know they're referenced properly. Holes line up perfectly, both sides. Again, clamped in place. Then the thought, I had this old temporary fence post kicking around. Prep the ends, tack weld it, I know it's level, and I also know that from the top of this vertical piece to here, I need about 2 1/4, 2.5 inches of play. So I'll drop this down from the top of my 14 gauge sheet, about the same, and then I can perfectly trace out the edges of my cowls. Let's take a look. Well, that worked out well. Let's see what I did here. I measured down 2 1/4 inches, centered my template on the panel because that top rail is level. It's a consistent 2 1/4 inches from the top, which positions these right and left extents of the firewall panel perfectly. So I'm about a 1/4 inch away from the edge. So now I will trace this template around that cowl shoulder and then more or less stop here, because then I can, with the cowl shoulder set on both sides, I can temporarily cleco it to the firewall, and then in essence back trace the top edge from the car itself. Famously, it's one solid piece in between. Then with it in place and the top trimmed, then I can worry about the bottom. Couple last thoughts. I've traced out the panel. When I go to trim the metal, I'll stay off of it and then slowly grind up against it as I fit it in place to make sure I have a nice tight tolerance. There are a lot of panels that you can buy online, but all of them, you install them by cutting this out and leaving about a 1/2 inch flange so that you can spot weld to it. What I intend to do, I intend to create that 1/2 inch flange out of the same 14 gauge sheet metal and weld it in place. I'll be able to dress the welds from front and back, and really that flange will add a tremendous amount of rigidity to that firewall, and never mind giving me a nice brand new edge for my cowl shoulder once I take that off. I think that makes good sense. The beauty of that top rail flush with the front of the firewall, it's easy to transfer dimensions down. So for example, there I have the bolt hole marked out for the front fender. To try and locate that without the benefit of a level crossbar, hence you see my marks on either side, the extent of the hole, center line, 10 inches down, 10 inches down, bang, easy transfer. And here I'm starting to line up the bottom of the cowl to pin with clecos as well, so that when I take off this top valance, none of my lines move. Upper inner cowl all cleaned up. Upper lower cowl also cleaned up. I'm going to show you why I thought it was important to put this top level brace in. So I'm able to put the cowl back in the proper location. I have one cleco on each side here. There's another point here, so I have 2 points of reference here to put that cleco in to know that it's level. On the front, because now I've opened this all up, how would I know where this is? Right? There's so much flex in this panel with it being cut open that now I'm able to cleco this into those reference points and get that back into its proper factory location. Plus, my panel that I've fabbed and fitted, I located that and drilled holes through and put clecos in before I opened this up. So not only can I reference this proper location with the brace and these temporary flanges, but I also know that my panel will line up with those points as well. Okay, what am I doing here? This is the brake pedal assembly, and with that embossed area, the mount was probably proud of this. I wanted to see if I needed to modify that bracket. So there is enough flexibility within that channel. You know, there's adjustment within the mounting assembly. There is flexibility within the existing pedal assembly to push that back to get this plate flush with my flush firewall. So as far as I can tell right now, there's absolutely no modification required to my stock pedal assembly to fit it in behind the flush firewall. That's good news. I hope this angle from the top, you can actually see that it's plumb. Now that I've determined I don't need to modify the brake pedal assembly, I want to locate the holes for the master brake cylinder. I'm going with a power assist system, master power brakes, 9-inch dual diaphragm brake booster with the Bear Remaster out in front. I debated keeping it a manual brake system. That's what the car came with. I haven't driven this car in 30 years. I haven't driven manual brakes in 30 years. I think the transition, even back then, going from manual brakes to power brakes and back and forth, you hit the brake and then you go through the windshield a couple times. Oh yeah, I'm driving power brakes again. Just the transition from my daily driver back and forth. And, as a predominant cruiser, I really wanted the same brake pedal feel as a modern sports car. So hence going with the brake booster. So why am I mocking that up now? Because I still want to decide whether or not I have room to go with a down bar. With the upper and inner lower cowl open, I have the opportunity to fab custom down bar doubler plates. I want to see if I have room for a future down bar with the brake booster in place, just so I can mock it up to my own comfort level. Drill the holes, locate the holes, drill the holes, mount the brake pedal assembly on the inside, mount the master on the outside, make sure everything's mocked up properly before I need to weld. It's just validation that everything's in the right spot. All right, so how am I going to transfer these holes? Well, I have a cheap transfer punch set, or my lovely wife Nancy says, don't say cheap, say budget friendly. So I have a budget friendly set of transfer punches. Because this is off the firewall, if you want to be precise, is that up, down, side? How do I make sure I'm coming in true to find that true center? Well, I'm going to use a square and a level, but first I'm going to highlight the mark or the holes so that my transfer punch point will be zeroed in. I'm not going to just rely on that tolerance, not for what I'm planning to do. So I'm going to put the transfer punch on the square against the face of the template, level it out, and tap the punch. That's the intent. Let's see if I can juggle everything. One little tap. There we go. Anyways, You get the idea. I'll punch the other ones and we're good to go. I still haven't reconciled the steering column firewall slash floor mount. They make some nifty mounts, or I could reuse this plate welded onto the inside and weld on some bolts so I could be somewhat, I would double up on it, have the same sort of mounting points. Don't know, but I'm not going to have this gaping hole in a big gasket. I don't have any linkage arms that I have to get through. All I'll have is a tight, clean, either I did it or Flaming River steering column. I want to make it as minimal and as tight a tolerance as possible. But while I have this template here, I'm simply going to reference some of the remaining holes as an artifact so I don't have to go through this process again. So just with my white marker, keep it as plumb and level as possible. Again, once I have this located, I can use this template on the bench from the back side and reference holes as well, but what the heck, while I have it here, might as well do it. That's for the speedometer cable, not going to have it, and I don't think I'm going to come through with my electrical connection on the firewall. I'm going to rethink that completely. Some guys out there have done some lovely things that I need a little more research before I can disclose what I plan to do. Still a thought in process. All right, let's take this off and have a look. Awesome. Well, I must say, a little bit of pre-planning, the notion of having this to measure down from, to locate fender mounting bolts with a square, because this is level and plumb, to hang this off, reference it, have extreme confidence to know that those penetrations will be exactly where I need them. I'm not fighting anything. Everything goes back solid and true. These braces work out fabulously. Highly recommended. It's worked out extremely well. Let's take it all apart and take it over to the bench. You'll see it comes apart as quickly as it goes together. There we go. All right. Reverse time lapse. Ready, go. Take this over, put it on the bench. My intent for a down bar, similar to a cage on the inside, or a roll bar, is to stiffen the chassis and the subframe. So a down bar would come off the top of the firewall and then bend down and connect to the subframe so that there's, lateral support. This heavy metal bracket that the fender connects to. The fenders act as a down bar in essence. Your front subframe would be a lot more flexible if it wasn't for the rigidity of the front fender. So I'm toying with the idea of either reinforcing that fender connection and hiding some sort of gusseted plate within that fender, similar to what I did to the rocker panels, which would be a lot more sophisticated, but I haven't thought that far ahead. Or I'll get my template. I've already fabbed up, roughly a 4.5 inch doubler plate that I would weld on the inside, tie into this fender bracket, weld top and bottom, whether or not I even bring back a return on the bottom or the top to really give it some strength. Make it out of, an 1/8 inch plate or something like that. And it's hidden in behind the firewall. You'd never see it, as opposed to some mounting ring and whatnot. So I could, in essence, weld a bung onto the firewall and then fit my bar into it with some nice hidden screws. It would be a very clean install, which I like. So that's what I'm going to put in here. But by going with a power assist brake and a big 9-inch dual vacuum brake booster, will I have room? Because those down bars really got to come right about here. So at the top, or at least I've seen them done that way, because you have to stay clear of the fender bracket, and then also the hinge for the front hood. You have to have a tolerance there. So I would need some flexibility. The hood would need to be on. I'd have to settle on whatever hood hinge I'm going with, whether I keep a factory. A lot of guys doing the Ring Brothers, you know, adding that level of jewelry to the engine compartment. Don't know what I'm going to do, but before I would have to commit to that, those things would have to be installed, so you know. But that size of doubler plate gives me that flexibility. And even if I don't go with a down bar, it's hidden in behind, no one sees it, and the opportunity to do it or not do it is there. I'm not losing that flexibility. So that's the plan. Well, a lot to do about nothing. Here I've put the firewall back in, mocked in the new 9-inch dual diaphragm vacuum booster from Master Power Brakes. And this is where a down bar would have to go. So I'm calling it. I'm saying the fact that I've decided to go with power assist brakes, I don't even have it bolted in, I just have it lightly referenced. That decision is going to limit my ability for a standard down bar, which is okay. I'd rather have the power brakes. So now the notion of enhancing the inner fender and the wheel tub to provide that rigidity will be key, which was, you know, that sophisticated way I want it to go anyways, instead of having a bulky bar in the engine compartment. Bar would have been cool though. Not going to happen. Okay, one decision impacts another. I was optimistic I could do both, but not. C'est la vie. We move on. Okay, it's getting late. Why not have some fun? Let's break out some of the jewelry for the engine compartment. I got my big ass brake shipment this week from Bear, and it included this beautiful master cylinder. I'm gonna unbox it and mock it up onto the vacuum brake booster just to see what it looks like. Hang on. Okay, look at this. I splurged. What can I say? I went with the banjo fittings. They look awesome. Didn't like the price tag, but it is what it is. And the matching proportioning valve that gets installed seamlessly at the base of the remaster cylinder. This is sweet stuff. Beautiful. I went with a silver color, the white lettering, black anodized caps. The calipers, I went with 6-piston calipers, 14-inch rotors all around. My calipers are the same silver color with white lettering. I want them to blend in with my wheels. I'm not going blackout. I'm still old school. Chrome's making a comeback, baby. None of this murdered out, blacked out look. It's going to be passé before this car's on the road. Okay, let's go put it on. There we go. Beautiful. It's just slipped over the bolts. Okay, enough playing. Let's get back to work. Next hole. Here's my original steering column. Sidebar. I love this steering column, or steering wheel. I had the Lux interior in my 67 base coupe. When this is all polished up and clean, when I look at it, it just screams 67 Camaro. There's a lot of aftermarket wheels I've looked at, but my heart and head keep coming back to that wheel. It's a little oversized by today's standards. Cranking manual steering back in the day, it was a great help, but we'll see how it goes. All right, refocus. Next hole, steering column penetration. This plate, which I referenced from that embossed area that was cut out, I can remove this, or I'm going to remove this. There's just 2 set screws on either side. I'll slide that plate off. That plate will give me that circumference. If I go with this mount, then I could drill the same hole. There's a swivel floor mount bracket that I go with, then I'd have to look at the specs at that. So without the final clarity, at least I can move forward in the right direction. So let's take that bracket off, line it up on the firewall, and see what we got. Okay, firewall sheet remains on the work supports here. Inside up, my brace, or the template, is located back down. You see my tight tolerance, center punches, everything's referenced perfectly. Now we have this stock GM steering bracket, mounting bracket off. It's a two-piece bracket. It actually comes off or comes apart at that seam where the two bolts are. Easy to get it on and off around any sort of linkage. I had a 2-speed shifter on the tree, that I put to a floor mount back in the day with a B&M Quicksilver shifter, so I could slap through that one gear. Anyways, I digress. Here's the bracket. This is where it goes. What's the beauty of using this bracket? Well, I know there's a I keep saying fly-by-wire, drive-by-wire accelerator pedal that utilizes those two mounting points and then is located properly within the pedal assembly. Because I know of it, I'm leaning towards it because it gives me some clarity. So reutilizing what I have, there's enough flexibility in this support that once a new steering column was mounted into it, assuming it's a similar diameter, that any variation between this embossed panel and my flush firewall, that tolerance could be made up and that metal reworked. So I have an ability to use that. Do I need to make that decision now? No, not really. Okay, before I get too far ahead of myself, I want to finish the fab of this firewall. So the cowl shoulder, as mentioned earlier, most firewall panels you would cut away from this cowl shoulder, leave a 1/2-inch strip to spot weld to, and you wouldn't impact that welded connection. The advantage of taking it off, I had a template, right, to get that scribed perfectly. My intent is to recreate that flange anew in 14 gauge steel and weld it to the extent of the cowl shoulder to match. I avoid having to deal with this cleanup and filling in all those spot welds, trying to make it true again. This is 20 gauge sheet, 14 gauge, brand new 14 gauge strip at a right angle, gives this a lot of new found rigidity. Same thing on this side. So I got the two cowl shoulders, the flanges to do, then bring you here. So earlier I said this is a 18-inch tall sheet. Well, that's all well and good, but I decided to come down and match the torque box at the front of the firewall. So in order to bring that down far enough, I had to section that part of the firewall and drop that down. Made better use of the sheet because at the bottom here all this would have got cut off anyways, but now I need to fill in a 2-inch strip thereabouts, butt weld, stitch it together, grind it smooth, make it disappear. Not an issue, especially on 14 gauge steel. Be pleasant welding. So flanges on the outside, 2-inch strip, and then more or less the fab is complete. I have access to a plasma cutter, so why not use it? As you can see, I cut a 1-inch wide strip of 14 gauge steel, 18 inches long, which is the length of that outer circumference of the cowl shoulder. Just massage it over my knee, fit it into place, clamp it along that existing outer cowl, tack it in place on both sides, and then I can finish welding it on the welding table. Okay, firewall is on the welding table. See that flange tacked in nicely. Lovely tolerances outside and inside. Ready to be welded. Do I need to install it now? Well, I would if I needed to weld it in, but because I don't want to be crawling around on the inside trying to get a tight tolerance for a steering column penetration in that cramped working angle. A lot easier off the car and on those stands than it is to weld everything in place and deal with it later. Having said that, I'm dealing with a lot of stuff later. What's happening with the transmission tunnel, bringing in the T56, got to raise the tunnel. Clutch, tunnel, steering, still up in the air. So why weld it in? Well, I don't have to, and I'm not going to. So I'm going to bolt it in place. All my reference drill marks and the clecos and everything, I know everything is where it should be. I'm good to go. I'm not even going to weld in this inner upper cowl. I'm just going to use some set screws, bolt it in, whatever. I'm going to bolt it in, and live to fight another day as those designs evolve. Why did I do it now? Buddies keep asking me that. Why did you jump to the firewall? I thought you were going to do the floors on the inside and the trunk and all that exciting DSE stuff. Well, I want to. I'm dying to. But the reason I did it now, because I plan to cut my frame jig. See, I have new rails underneath. I'm going to support the inner back third on a new rail and wheels. And I'm going to keep the front quarter. I guess there's 4 mounting points. 1, 2, 3, 4 at the back. So 3/4 I'm going to support on the new rails, so I can back the entire floor assembly out and in from the butt end of the car, and I'll keep the front end supported on the outside rails of the jig. Okay, because I have to drop off my level supports and spin the car around. It's been in this position in the garage for about a year now. I didn't want to move the car out of level with all this opened up. I thought it would be too susceptible to twisting. While I had everything zeroed out and leveled, I would deal with this. So now with all my reference points and everything secure on the new sheet, I think I'm able to put the custom firewall, fab firewall to bed for now and come back to the final design details at a later date. I think that's the plan. Firewall fab complete. Installation will be deferred to another day. Let's take a look at it one last time. Here it is, all in place. These corners turned out perfect. Beautiful tolerance. Everything's sitting a little proud of the final resting spot. You can see here the bolt for the fender is a little out because it's bolted to the face of this upper inner cowl, and it will be flush. It'll be butt welded, so it will get sucked back, but that'll be part of the installation at a later date. I've secured it with sheet metal screws intermittently here to the tunnel, that raised part, so the floor is tied in, the toe boards are tied in at the bottom, the side cowl, and all along the top of the inner intermittently. So it is secure enough for me to move on to the floors. And this concludes the firewall fab. Stay tuned for installation at a later date.